trouble at the palace, problems in the White House potentially, and certainly great fear all over the world with the great and the not so good. Jeffrey Epstein may have died in potentially mysterious circumstances. Virginia Giuffre, who made some pretty big accusations about the former Prince Andrew, they've all gone, but the legend lives on, and it becomes a nightmare for those very same people. How big is this going to get? How deep is the iceberg, which is affecting those old establishment characters from the royalty to the Republicans? Is this a great royal rumpus or something bigger? Find out with me right now on Lembit Öpik Live.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. 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 Boring.
You gotta work. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages. The hostages.
Oh, yes, it's getting hot under the collar at Buckingham Palace and perhaps quite tricky on Capitol Hill. Although Jeffrey Epstein died, as I say, in rather mysterious circumstances, he committed suicide, or as some suggest, was suicided. And Virginia Giuffre, who made some pretty stiff claims, so to speak, about the former Prince Andrew, has also passed away, even though she said if it was said that she died of suicide, don't believe it. Their legend lives on. Their words continue to ricochet around the corridors of power, wealth, and influence all over the world. But who's right? Who's telling the truth? And will we ever get to the truth? And what's going on with Andrew, formerly known as Prince, as many people say? He was arrested and he's been released, but under some kind of caution. Now, Prince Andrew has long been accused of not telling the truth. I think I can safely say that without being sued, because if you compare what he said in his infamous BBC interview with Emily Maitlis to the realities that we've discovered in the millions of pages of released transcripts, even though they've been heavily redacted, from the Epstein files, the infamous Epstein files, it's quite obvious that what the then Prince Andrew said to Maitlis diverges rather far from the truth as established in black and white. Now, you could put together a case to claim that all of that has been fabricated. Dream on. Those documents were never meant to be seen by the wider world. And if they were fabricated, surely there'd be a whistleblower by now. And I don't mean the people who are implicated. I mean third parties who'd say, I was there and you weren't there, man. You don't know. That's not happening. Instead, each individual defendant, and I use that phrase in an informal, non-legalistic way, is saying, that's not true what they said about me. So what is going on here? Are these individuals who've been wronged by specious allegations in those millions of pages? Or are we beginning to see a web of intrigue which lifts the lid, draws back the veil on the power base of what you might call rather pompously the Western hegemony, the great and the good, the self and mutually defending individuals who seem to have been enormously motivated by nefarious activities? Now, it has to be explained that Epstein and his shenanigans with women are not why the former Prince Andrew was arrested. He's been arrested because apparently he acted against the public interest by breaking the basic rules, sharing highly confidential information with people who shouldn't have got it. And I stress that because this is not about the sex allegations. We will discuss those on the show today, but that's not what he was arrested for. So what do we learn at this stage? And remember, you can go to the archive, follow us on Unprecedented TV. That's at Unprecedented TV on YouTube. Then you can compare what we say on this show with what transpires in the next 12 months. But I put it to you that things are beginning to tumble. The house of cards of mutual protection by people who never thought they'd be exposed, literally and metaphorically, is beginning to be blown down by the wind of publicity. Dead men and dead women can tell tales. But what are those tales? Joining me now to try to unravel, that's very Freudian, this web of intrigue is Dr. Marcus Papadopoulos. Marcus, good to see you.
Hello, Lembit. Thank you for having me back on.
I hope I'm not being too dramatic, too red top, front page sensationalist, but it does seem to me that with every passing day, we are discovering more and more and more about the grubby, seething underbelly of a massive establishment all over the world that never thought it would be found out.
Indeed. But first of all, Lembit, I would like to make two observations. Firstly, the horrific scandal stemming from the release of the Epstein files doesn't begin with Andrew and Peter Mandelson and doesn't end with Andrew and Peter Mandelson. In the context of Britain, it implicates the entire British state, or as I like to refer to the forces which rule Britain, the entire British ruling elite. And the second observation is this. In Britain, and contrary to what the puppet Starmer has said, the monarch is very much above the law because he or she is immune to both criminal and civil proceedings.
I didn't know. Wait a minute. Is that actually in statute?
Yes, it is. So if a monarch is suspected of having committed a crime or has actually committed a crime, he or she cannot be arrested. That is written into law.
Does that apply to princes as well?
No, only to the monarch that applies to.
Okay, so you carry on. This is fascinating.
So that is why when you hear the likes of Starmer, or when you hear the Telegraph or the Times or the Guardian or Channel 4 News or BBC News saying that no one is above the law in the UK, that is a lie, because, as I said, the monarch is immune to both criminal and civil proceedings. Now, turning to Andrew, it is said by the police and by British mainstream media that he was arrested, and they now say that he has been released. And as you correctly pointed out, he was arrested because of misconduct, public misconduct. However, many years ago, during the infamous interview which he gave, I said to other news channels, why is it that Andrew has not been, at the very least, questioned by the British police? Because if I was accused of what Andrew was accused of all those years ago, then quite rightly, the police would either have arrested me or they would have asked me to come to my closest police station to be questioned. Yet that never happened with Andrew. Now that the British people, now that the Western nations as a whole are so much more enlightened about the actual structure of power in Britain and in the rest of the Western world, and the nature of the dark forces which rule Britain and the rest of the Western world. Only now has Andrew been, quote, arrested? It is my submission, Lembit, that perhaps nothing will come of Andrew having been arrested. Or it is possible that Andrew and Mandelson will be thrown under the bus, so to speak, by the British ruling elite, will be described by the British ruling elite as, quote, bad eggs, who did not represent anyone else in British power but themselves. And that would be a way of the British ruling elite trying to kill the fallout from the release of the Epstein files. So in no way am I gobsmacked, to put it crudely, by the arrest of Andrew. No, I will not be fooled, because I know the actual structure of power in Britain, and I know how the British ruling elite exercise that power.
Just a word there. The Starmer, Epstein, Mandelson. Epstein, the dead man, was so influential that he nearly cost Starmer his job at the beginning of the week, if you're watching this live. And he staggers on, but clearly damaged. Mandelson did lose his job because of some kind of intoxication with his deep love of Epstein and the lifestyle that he seemed to provide him. It's impossible for me to be sued for saying this because Starmer said it. Mandelson lied and lied and lied. Now, that doesn't mean that Starmer hasn't lied. But on the one side, there has been a massive broadside, a torpedo into the side of the body politic when it comes to the Labour government, at least, because of Epstein. Now, I don't know. I just want to check. Do you feel that Epstein's reach has affected the political side of British life?
Yes, I do. The only difference I would have with you, Lembit, is the wording. I do not believe that this is a major problem for the British government or the Labour government or Prime Minister Starmer. No, it is a major problem for the British state or the British ruling elite. With Epstein, he can be the scapegoat because dead men can't talk. And it is possible that Andrew and Mandelson will also be the fall guys. It is possible. As we speak now, Lembit, Mandelson has not even been questioned by the police. That could change. But again, I think we need to be very clear about this. Starmer is not in control. If the British ruling elite decide that he needs to go for whatever reason, then he will resign. Before 2020, the vast majority of Britons truly believed that the Prime Minister, that the House of Commons was the central source of power in the United Kingdom. Because of the COVID lie, or what we call the plandemic or the scamdemic, most Britons have now woken up to the reality that Parliament, that the Prime Minister does not govern Britain, that there are very dark, malignant, powerful forces, globally powerful forces which rule Britain. And these powerful forces are decadent, are depraved. Many of us have been saying this for many, many years. Many of us have said, for example, that the American deep state is involved, is at the center of human trafficking, drug trafficking, gun trafficking, and organ trafficking. Now, because of how the COVID lie woke so many people up, now people are starting to realize that that is true regarding the American ruling elite or the American deep state.
Let's talk a quick word about Epstein. let's talk about him and move on. Now, he apparently died in, apparently, not everyone thinks he's dead, apparently died in a very high security prison cell while on suicide watch. One headline my team found very easily is this: strangled, not hanged. Doctor who expressed, who witnessed Epstein's autopsy, and it goes on. Now, it's quite convenient that Epstein's dead, because the stories he could tell about the very people you're describing could bring down governments, possibly. I wonder if Epstein himself was a puppet. I very much doubt that he wasn't taking orders. I suspect he was taking orders. I would counsel you not to suggest, if you agree with me, who he was taking orders from. That's above our pay grade for the show today. But I wonder if you think he himself was a cog in a bigger machine.
I wholeheartedly concur with your analysis, Lembit. Epstein, let me start again. Suffice to say, Epstein did not sit at the top table. Epstein was a cog, a vile human being, a rancid man, but he did not sit at the top table. He was a puppet. He was, as I say, a cog. And yes, he could have named publicly the most senior people in the world, men and women, who rule the Western world, from politics to civil service to military to the intelligence community to the police to the media to banking to the financial elites, and so on and so on. Will we ever know how he truly died? Of course we will not know how he truly died. But as I said moments ago, he's being used as a fool guy, because dead men can't talk. No different to Jimmy Savile. And I am not, of course, alleging that Jimmy Savile died as a result of foul play. But in Britain, he is the fool guy. Everything is pinned on him. He was a bad egg. He was a rotten human being. Well, yes, undoubtedly he was, but he did not sit at the top table. He was a puppet. He was a cog. And yes, he could have named the puppet masters.
And that would make him quite a big target, to be blunt. Stay with us. We're only halfway through. You're watching me, Lembit Öpik, here on Lembit Öpik Live on Unprecedented TV. Please do like and subscribe. Go to @Unprecedented TV. It's all free, and you'll get a cornucopia, a massive store of stories, programs, and some entertainment too. It's not all that heavy. And you'll also be able to compare the predictions we've made in the past with what's happened now. Another great series you've got is Tim Scott Uncancelled. That's Tim Scott Uncancelled. He is the head of the Freedom Association, and he does news reviews from the papers so that you don't have to read them. Tim Scott Uncancelled, usually on a Saturday for the debut of the show, 10 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. But you'll find it all in the archive too, hundreds of shows there. And please do like and subscribe. Somebody else who should make you want to be here is Dr. Marcus Papadopoulos, who is far better educated than me. He's a doctor, I am not. But also you have a lot of lived experience in the story so far. We think that Epstein was a puppet, not a puppet master. Convenient he's gone, because he could have named the puppet masters. So maybe strangled, not hanged. As you say, we'll never know. He had the Lolita Express very badly misused aircraft, a Boeing 727, I think it was, huge plane. He must have been absolutely loaded to have that. And Lolita, of course, referring to the book by the same name. I'm sure you know who wrote it. Do you?
The name has slipped my mind.
Okay, I'll give you a minute or two to redeem yourself if you remember. Lolita was the story of a teacher who basically became infatuated with an underage girl, and they went across America in their relationship. I won't spoil it. It's worth reading. It's quite a dark book. But obviously, Epstein called his plane the Lolita Express. It doesn't leave much to the imagination, does it, Marcus?
It certainly doesn't. And it demonstrates Epstein's depraved nature. But again, I reiterate, we should not be preoccupied with Epstein. We should not be preoccupied with puppets. We need to identify the puppet masters.
Hard to do. Incidentally, so that people don't forget the question I posed, it was, I think it was Nikita Nabokov, might have the first name wrong.
Yes.
Nabokov who wrote that. There's a film with James Mason in it, which really is a very accessible. It's a dark film. Don't watch the remake. Watch the original. It's a dark film.
The first name was Vladimir.
Yes, it was Vladimir Nabokov. That's right. You also mentioned. You mentioned I mentioned the aircraft. You mentioned the dark things there. There's Bill Clinton. He doesn't dispute these photographs are authentic. There's some nice lady sitting on his lap there. Him next to Epstein, him having a nice bath. And another picture of him and a nice lady. And what I have to say at this point, what the mainstream media says, of course, none of this shows or suggests any wrongdoing. We have to say that. Not one of those pictures suggests any wrongdoing, but it certainly suggests a relationship with Epstein. And that I find interesting. The president of the United States, I've been in the presence of American presidents, but I've never spoken to one. I've never sat in the president of the United States lap either, I have to say. So we've got this darkness going on. I'm wondering, and we got the aircraft as well. By the way, there's another confusion. He's so wealthy. There's another plane, if we can put it up. It wasn't just that one. Yeah, there's the other one. It's a Gulfstream. This guy had money from somewhere coming out of his ears. This guy seemed to be limitlessly wealthy, and he knew all these people. But you still don't think he's the core culprit here. Let's talk. Go on.
Not at all. No, not at all. I believe, as I said earlier, that he was a vile human being. He was a procurer of children for the rich and the powerful in the world, in particular in the Western world. And let me say one more thing, Lembit. You bring up Bill Clinton. Well, let's just focus on Clinton and his presence in the company of Epstein. It is safe to assume that both the FBI and the CIA were aware of Epstein's dark nature in relation to underage girls. It's safe to assume that. So
I'm going to interrupt you a bit just because we're moving at a frightening pace in terms of time. I say this rhetorically. I am very, 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 very surprised that Epstein, with his depravity, only procured girls and women. Why isn't there a single man or boy involved in his procurement tactics, given that a number of the people who he was pleasing, or let me put it this way, a number of people with whom he consorted may have had different tastes. I put that out there. It's rhetorical, but I predict that that's going to become a story as well. Please do carry on.
Yes. So if we can safely assume that both the FBI and the CIA were aware of the depraved nature of Epstein, why is it that they did not convey that to Bill Clinton? Why is that? Why is it they did not advise him, do not have anything to do with him, President Clinton. Now, there's either two ways we can look at it. The first way is that both the FBI and the CIA failed to communicate that to Clinton, or they did communicate that to Clinton and he ignored that. So which one is it?
Well, let's be clear. It's obvious he consorted with Epstein. That's Bill Clinton. He said, I think he said he'd been on the plane several times. I think it's 17 times. It's quite a lot. If you'd flown on it with an airline 17 times, you'd say, yeah, I'm quite familiar with the airline. Epstein, the Lolita Express, he was quite familiar with that. And I would say if I had done at least, well, all of those four things, hung around with Epstein in strange clothes, had a girl on my lap in two different circumstances, or was bathing in whatever circumstances that was, with somebody there, I don't know who that was, I probably remember at least one of those incidences. So you're saying that it is quite a peculiar thing if Bill Clinton claims that he wasn't aware of the circumstances, because either he might have worked it out himself or he might have been warned.
Absolutely. The FBI and the CIA, in my opinion, knew without a doubt about Epstein's horrific nature and what he was engaged in. Therefore, why did Clinton continue to keep him as a friend? Why? And finally, Lembit, all of these people in the Western world who have been implicated in the Epstein files, for many years now, we have been told to look up to them, that they are the defenders of civilization. They are the defenders of freedom, of democracy, of human rights. They are the leaders of the free world. Well, are they really?
Well, I've never been that. I thought Bill Clinton was good at the time, but I've never been that impressed with him ever since. Well, he said a few things which turned out to be untrue. And the likes of Obama have disappointed me because they believe, in my view, in the nonsense of climate emergency caused by humans. But let's get to the heart of the matter. The reason we're discussing it. There's a set of photographs, one of them historic and two of them quite recent. The historic one is of Andrew, formerly known as Prince, over a body. We don't know anything. I don't know anything about who that girl is. The other two are of his arrest. Now, you said something at the beginning of the show that the monarch, him or herself, is above the law, literally. And I guess being the brother of the head of state probably gives you a little bit of immunity based on what you said. But Andrew has now stopped being protected by King Charles, as far as I can tell. These pictures of his arrest are embarrassing, but the picture that worries me the most there, what's he doing? Now, I don't want to speculate too much on it, but it leads me to a bigger question. Is there any prospect, in your view, Marcus, that the arrests which are about breaching his public duty, the rules when it comes to public service, will seep into getting into this other, it might be even darker area, or questions about whether there was sexual misconduct? Or do you think that they will remain separate and forever so?
The number one objective of the British monarchy is to ensure the preservation of the crown, to ensure the preservation of the monarchy. And therefore, it is possible that Andrew could be, in a manner of speaking, thrown under the bus. It is possible. On the other hand, nothing could come of his arrest. And you will notice, Lembit, and your audience will notice, that when I say arrest, I say it in a certain way, because I'm not going to be fooled by the British ruling elite and their useful idiots, because I know the actual structure of power of the British ruling elite. I know how it works in practice. So when the media says, or when the police says that Andrew has been arrested, maybe not. You have only their word to go on. And neither of those groups, neither the police nor British mainstream media, is independent or impartial. They cannot be trusted. The whole episode could simply be a charade.
Having said that, there's the telling picture.
Yeah.
Then that'll be all over the global media tomorrow. Whoever took that picture has written their ticket for the rest of their lives. That picture will be priceless. I think a picture like that is a game changer. And I wonder, this is maybe where I differ with you, because I understand what you're saying about this potentially being a setup for against us, the public, rather than an arrest of him. Andrew, we'll never quite remember if it's Mountbatten, Windsor, or the other way around. But I just think that this picture is an absolute, it's an absolute game changer. You can't recover your reputation from something like that. Now, you could say that's unfair because it's a single picture. And I know what it's like to be hounded by the police. I got hounded by the police when I was having high-profile relationships. But it seems to me, in order for this to this whole thing to be a setup, Andrew would have to be far smarter than he is. You mentioned his interview. I also raised the interview with Emily Maitlis, and he made an absolute pig's ear of it. It was a disaster what he did there. And he sat there and he looked quite smart and everything else. But what he said has been proved to be up to tosh. And people didn't believe him. They didn't think this man doesn't sweat. They didn't think these things. He's not smart enough to be part of a conspiracy, Marcus.
Off the top of my head, I believe that interview was conducted in 2019.
Yeah.
For the top of my head.
Something like that, yeah.
2019. So why is it, nearly 7 years on, that he has only just now been arrested? Why is that?
Because we couldn't, not we, no one could get to the data. Because what's happened is a dark, seething, shocking, obscene treasure trove. And after we're off air, I'll tell you some other things that I don't even dare share on air yet because the team hasn't had a chance to check it. But this treasure trove was never meant to be exposed to the world. And due to a decision by Donald Trump, for whatever reason, he was forced into doing something he promised to do, and then he backtracked on. I think it's because essentially we've got into the secrets of the mind of Epstein.
Yes, but there's no reason as to why the police should not have questioned him, not arrested him back in 2019. At the very least, they should have questioned him. Why didn't they do that? I think we both know, Lembit, that if you or I were accused of what Andrew was accused of in 2019, we would have been questioned by the British police, and rightly so. But he wasn't. I believe, Lembit, that when it comes to the British ruling elite, all that we see is a facade. The British ruling elite, amongst other things, is the most devious, the most duplicitous of ruling elites in history. And yes, I put my name against that statement. They are the most devious and the most duplicitous in human history. And there's nothing that they are not capable of doing. A photograph of Andrew in a car, it doesn't mean anything to me. Let's see, Lembit, if anything will come of it. Let's see.
I think this is one of the areas. Sometime we'll go for dinner and compare notes on this. I'm, for whatever reason, more sympathetic to the establishment of the royal family than yourself, and I'm willing to share the reasons on another occasion. I know that you have a venomous dislike of the royal family. It's not because you're petty. It's because you have a strategic concern about it. In terms of the facts, then, you know, he did this interview, and then other things have come up. He said he never remembered. That's the picture, the infamous picture. That's Virginia Giuffre. I can't remember how to say her name. The one who said, if they say it's suicide, it's not. And he never remembers ever meeting her. Never remembers it. Never remembers it. And so I put it to you, there's another way of explaining it. That Charles, who arguably you could say is an honourable man, you might not think that, but you could say he's an honourable man, has been relentlessly embarrassed by the antics of his brother. And the fact he came out after the arrest saying that the law must take its course is actually a statement in favour of the very thing that you're saying, in favour of the British establishment being under the spotlight, however we got here. Now, you're not buying that.
No, not at all. So for example, the attacks on Christianity that we see in Britain, why is it that Charles has, like his mother before him, why is it that Charles has never condemned the attacks on Christianity? Why is it he hasn't even expressed sadness at the decline of Christianity in Britain? Someone could say, oh, Marcus, it's because it's a constitutional monarchy. Okay, then why is it he talks openly about his support of Ukraine? Why is it he talks openly about the need to save the world from, quote, climate change? Yet he says nothing about the attacks on Christianity in Britain. He says nothing about the attacks on British culture in Britain. He says nothing about how on a regular basis Britain's maritime waters are being violated by illegal immigrants. He says nothing about that, like his mother before him. So why is that?
And let's get to, I'll leave that one for the audience to consider. Do have your say. Go to Unprecedented TV on YouTube, or you can put your comments into X. I'd be delighted to have a chat with you there as well. I put it to you, though, that the elites, the royalty in other countries are suffering too. And there's one of them, Bill Gates. And he's been accused. Well, it's been said that he's up to, well, let me just read it to you. One of the headlines: Bill Gates denies Epstein email allegations involving STDs, sexually transmitted diseases in Russian women. The allegation he's denying is that he wanted to secretly dose his wife with antibiotics because he feared he'd given her a sexually transmitted disease due to being with Russian women. Now, Bill Gates adamantly denies that this happened. They all deny all these things happened, the things that have been cited in the reports. We focused on Andrew, formerly Prince Andrew. It seems to me what you said about the British royal family could be applied to the Gates royal family, royally rich, and a whole bunch of other royal families, the Clinton royal family. It seems to me that for some reason, I don't know if this is me being conspiratorial, for some reason, all of these massive families, these massive power bases have all been brought together by Epstein, and they're all shipping water. They're taking in water, which is what happens when a ship is sinking.
Well, let me just make one point, Lembit. Bill Gates descends from the British royal family.
Does he?
Yes, he does.
How?
It's in the public domain. The bloodlines are the same. He descends from the British royal family. That is why I believe in 2005, the Queen bestowed on him an award which officially is only reserved for British citizens. Yet she gave him an award. I can't remember off the top of my head what the name of that award was, but I'm very, very confident it was in 2005. But yes, from the British royal family.
And in the few minutes we got left, we won't be able to check it. That's fascinating. If that's right, that adds grist to the mill here.
But many members of the American ruling elite, or as Trump says, the American deep state, descend from the British royal family or the British aristocracy. So, for example, the Bush family descend from the British royal family. George Bush Jr. Is a cousin to Charles, and of course, when the Queen was alive, when Elizabeth was alive, they were cousins, distant cousins, but nonetheless, the Bush family is related to the British royal family.
You've put so many questions up. My team is feverishly trying to check all this up. Don't worry about it. Just focus on the pictures. We'll have another conversation about this. You could write a book about this and get another PhD. Let's finish on this. And if you can put what's going to be an iconic picture, I would say. Yeah, they're right. That's the one. Now, I have to say, you can take a bad picture of anyone. If the guy was on a multi-frame shot, he might have just got him before he was blinking or yawning. I get that. But I have no doubt, I make a prediction that the media will feast on this picture for years, whatever happens. That will be splashed across more front pages than any other picture, if you're watching this live, more or less when you're watching this show. But I don't put too much store on photographs. I do put a lot of store on spirituality, and those who know me well know I have a strong view that there is something demonic going on in the world right now. Let me ask you this question. Do you know who this depicts? You probably don't. Any guess? A theatrical performance. But the character
it looks like Lucifer
has a lot in common, in my view, with those who are in danger now. Any guesses?
Enlighten me.
I'll give you a clue, and this won't help you much. It was the greatest play I watched in all my years at school. I wasn't in a lot of plays, but I wasn't in this one.
You're going to have to.
He makes a bad deal and pays for it at the end. Any idea? Dr. Faustus.
Not King Lear?
Dr. Faustus is the fellow who does a deal with the devil to have anything he wants for about 24 years in exchange for his soul. And at the end, he begs to break the deal. And the devil says, no, you've done it. His representative Mephistopheles carries out the devil's faithful, solemn oath to give Faustus everything he wants, but there's no escape at the end. I wonder, Marcus, if this is what we're seeing playing out by some of the elites who did a deal metaphorically, or some would say literally, with the devil.
I agree, Lembit. I believe that what we are seeing in the Western world, in other parts of the world, is satanic. I don't believe there's any other rational explanation for what we are seeing. And of course, these satanic people in the world who have immense power, immense wealth, are able to tempt ordinary people into, metaphorically speaking, getting into bed with them. Well, once you get into bed with evil, there's no getting out. You can't just say, oh, I'm leaving now. No, evil will decide when you leave, if indeed it will allow you to lead. So the moral of the story is, do not succumb to the temptation of evil. Be true to your soul, be true to your morals, be true to God, be true to Jesus Christ, and stay away from the decadence that is wealth and materialism and all the other decadent, indeed depraved pursuits that so many people are now pursuing in life.
Always good to speak with you. Thank you so much. That's Dr. Marcus Papadopoulos. You don't have to agree with his or indeed my spiritual views, but I'll leave you with this thought. Whether you think the Dr. Faustus story is literal or metaphorical, it's worth having a read, because one thing is for sure: people who have made some kind of a dark pact with dark people whether they claim ignorance of the soul of the people they've done deals with or not, are now finding that those deals are coming back and requiring their pound of flesh. Those deals are now being repaid, whether the people who did the deals wanted to or expected to or not. I don't know how Andrew's tale will play out, but I'll finish on this prediction. Whether Epstein killed himself or not, the things he did live on in the misdeeds of those who he coerced or tempted in a Faustian way to be part of it. And at the other end of this deal, someone like Virginia Giuffre, who I suspect was coerced, that's my view, and who I am very surprised committed suicide, very surprised indeed, was a victim. And so we find the final irony here. The perpetrator and the victim both tell tales from beyond the grave. And since they are beyond the grave, they can no longer be silenced. And that is the greatest irony of all.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.